Have you noticed how sometimes people hold your gaze just a second too long, or how they glance at you, then quickly look away as if they were caught? That's not random, that's not coincidence. Eye contact is one of the most honest signals of attraction because it's the one thing people struggle to control. When someone finds you compelling, their eyes give them away before their words do. If they stare, it's because they're drawn in. If they avoid it, it's because the intensity feels too much for them to handle. Either way, your presence is creating a reaction. And what's fascinating is you don't have to be the loudest guy in the room for this to happen. Sometimes just being there, calm, composed, and comfortable in your own skin, makes people notice you more than the person who's trying so hard to get attention. That quiet magnetism, the way your gaze can make someone else feel both curious and a little unsettled, is one of the clearest signs you're more attractive than you give yourself credit for. Have you ever seen the way someone suddenly changes when you're around? They start fidgeting with their hands, laughing a little louder than usual, or stumbling over words they normally say with ease. That's not them being clumsy, that's you affecting their state. Attraction has a way of making people overthink the smallest things. They're suddenly more aware of how they sound, how they look, whether they're saying the right thing. It's almost like your presence puts a spotlight on them, and in that moment they can't help but feel a little self-conscious. And here's the interesting part, you might not even be doing anything. You're just being yourself. But that quiet confidence, that grounded energy, makes people around you tune into every little detail of their own behavior. They can't relax the same way they would with anyone else, because deep down they care about the impression they're making on you. That's not just interaction, that's attraction revealing itself in real time. Have you noticed how sometimes when you speak, people actually lean in, not because they didn't hear you, but because they don't want to miss a single word? That's a powerful sign. Most conversations are filled with noise, people talking over each other, waiting for their turn instead of listening. But when you speak and the room slows down, when people pause to really hear you, that means your words carry weight. And it's not always about saying something clever or perfectly polished. Often, it's the calm in your voice, the certainty in your tone, or the authenticity in what you're saying that makes people stop. They can sense that you're not speaking to impress. You're speaking because you have something worth saying. That kind of presence doesn't just draw attention, it commands respect. And respect, more than anything else, is deeply attractive. One of the most magnetic things about you might be something you don't even notice. The way you make people feel understood. Think about how rare that really is. Most people walk through life desperate to be heard, yet constantly interrupted, overlooked, or judged. But when someone feels like you're actually listening, really listening, it changes everything. It's not just about nodding along, it's about the way you hold space for them, the way you remember the little details they share, the way you don't rush to fill every silence with your own story. That makes people feel safe around you. It makes them feel seen in a world where they're often invisible. And here's what's beautiful. You don't need to try to be impressive when you do this, because you've already tapped into the deepest level of connection. When someone feels understood by you, they're not just drawn to you. They're pulled in because attraction isn't always about how you look. It's about how you make someone feel when they're with you. What people find irresistible about you isn't just what you do, it's what you don't do. You don't chase after approval, you don't need constant reassurance, you don't bend yourself into shapes just to be liked. That calm confidence you carry, even if you don't always feel it, speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Because think about it. How many people exhaust themselves trying to prove their worth, trying to win everyone over? When you're the man who doesn't need to, it stands out. It shows you're comfortable in your own skin, and that energy is magnetic. People are drawn to you not because you're shouting for attention, but because you don't need it. You walk into a room and give off the vibe of someone who knows who he is, and that quiet assurance makes people respect you before you've even opened your mouth. Confidence isn't arrogance, it's self-trust. And when others sense that in you, they can't help but be attracted to it. Have you ever had someone repeat back to you a tiny thing you said weeks ago, something you barely even remembered yourself? That's not by accident. That's because you left an impression. When people remember your words, it means you stood out in their mind long after the moment passed. And here's what's important. It's usually not the big, dramatic statements that stick. It's the small, thoughtful things. The way you asked a question that showed you were paying attention, the way you made an observation that made them feel seen. Those moments may feel insignificant to you, but to someone else, they echo. They replay it later when you're not even there. That's what attraction does. It lingers. It turns simple interactions into memories. And when people can't forget the little things you say, it's a sign that who you are has left a mark far deeper than you realize. Sometimes, the most powerful thing about you isn't what you say at all, it's the silence you carry. Have you ever noticed how, in a room full of noise, your quiet presence can draw more attention than someone else's constant talking? That's because silence, when it comes from confidence, is magnetic. You don't feel the need to fill every gap with words, and that unsettles people in the best possible way. They start wondering what's going on in your head. They lean into the mystery. They sense there's depth beneath the calm exterior. Most people talk to prove themselves. You don't have to, and that's why your stillness speaks volumes. It creates intrigue, it commands respect, and it shows a strength that doesn't need to be announced. That unshakable calm is rare, and when people feel it from you, they can't help but be drawn in. Have you ever noticed how people subtly adjust themselves when they're around you? Maybe they sit up straighter, choose their words more carefully, or suddenly try to present the best version of themselves. That's not a coincidence. That's you raising the standard without even saying a word. When someone is attracted to you, they naturally want to rise to meet the level they sense in you. It's like your presence quietly challenges them to be sharper, kinder, more put together, and it's not about intimidation, it's inspiration. You make people want to show up differently, because deep down, they don't want to fall short in your eyes. That's one of the clearest signs of your attractiveness. You don't just make people notice you, you make them want to become better when they're with you. Not everyone's reaction to you will be smiles and compliments sometimes. It's the opposite. You'll notice a shift, a bit of tension, maybe even a touch of hostility from certain people. And it's easy to take that personally, to think you've done something wrong. But often, what's really happening is that your presence is shining a light on their insecurities. Attraction doesn't just create admiration, it can also stir up envy. When someone sees qualities in you they wish they had, it can make them uncomfortable. They might downplay you, challenge you, or even act cold, not because you lack something, but because you remind them of what they're missing. And here's the key, that kind of reaction is still a sign of your impact. Whether it's admiration or envy, you're leaving a mark. You're not someone people feel neutral about. And that in itself is proof of your attractiveness. You know what's fascinating? Some of the most attractive men in the world don't even realize they are. They're not standing in front of the mirror rehearsing lines. They're not trying to walk with a manufactured swagger. They're not obsessing over whether every detail of their outfit is going to impress people. They're just being. And ironically, that's the very thing that makes them magnetic. Because the truth is, nothing kills attraction faster than desperation. Nothing kills it faster than someone trying to force a performance. But when you strip all of that away, when you stop chasing and start simply existing in your truth, that's when people lean in. That's when they notice you without you even asking to be noticed. Think about it. How often do we meet people who are trying too hard? The guy who constantly named drops to prove he's successful, the one who can't stop flexing his muscles or making every story about himself, the guy who puts on a mask because he thinks being his real self won't be enough. And yet, the more he tries to prove something, the less convincing he becomes. People sense the effort. They sense the neediness. It's like perfume that's been sprayed too heavily. What was meant to be attractive becomes overwhelming, even suffocating. Now compare that to the man who doesn't need to prove anything. He's not trying to convince you he's valuable. He knows it. He's not performing a role. He's just living in alignment with who he is. And here's the irony. That's the man people are drawn to, often without him even noticing. Because authenticity has a frequency to it, a signal that cuts through the noise. When you're real, when you're comfortable in your own skin, people can feel it. And that feeling is irresistible. Sometimes the most attractive thing about you is exactly the thing you're not thinking about. It's in the way you laugh without checking if anyone thinks it sounds cool. It's in the way you listen without trying to jump in with a clever line. It's in the way you carry yourself when you're not performing. You might think those little moments are insignificant, but that's the very space where your true magnetism lives. Because authenticity is effortless, and effortlessness always feels more powerful than effort. People fall for the unguarded version of you. They're not falling for the man who's rehearsed. They're falling for the man who shows up as himself, flaws and all. And that's what so many men miss. They think they have to add more bravado, more stories, more muscles, more money, more status. When in reality, what draws people in is what's already there when you strip all of that away. Your authenticity doesn't compete for attention, it commands it. Imagine this. You're sitting at a cafe, you're not dressed up, you're not on stage, you're not trying to impress anyone. You're just sipping your coffee, scrolling your phone, minding your own business, and yet someone across the room is drawn to you. They don't know why, but there's something about the way you carry yourself when you're relaxed. Something about the way you seem comfortable just existing. That moment when you're not performing is often when you're the most magnetic, because in those moments your energy is calm, unforced, and that's the energy people crave. And here's something even more important. When you're not trying to prove yourself, you create space for real connection. Because think about what happens when you're performing. You're focused on how you're coming across. You're in your head. You're filtering every move. And when you're in your head, you're not with the other person. You're not present. You're not seeing them. But when you're authentic, when you're not concerned with playing a role, suddenly you're free. You're actually with them in that moment. And people can feel that difference. They feel seen. They feel heard. They feel like you're actually there. Not trying to impress them, but simply being yourself with them. And that is rare. And rare, as I've said before, is always attractive. Attractiveness, at its core, is not a performance. It's permission to just be who you are without apology. People are drawn to that because so many are starved for it. Most people are exhausted from trying to be enough, from trying to keep up appearances, from trying to win validation. So when they encounter someone who doesn't need to do any of that, it feels refreshing, it feels grounding, it feels like home. The irony is that the men who don't believe they're attractive are often the ones radiating the most magnetism. Why? Because they're not walking around with the heavy weight of self-consciousness. They're not polishing an image every 5 seconds. They're not curating every interaction. They're simply living, and in that state of ease they become a mirror for others. They show people what it looks like to be free, and that's intoxicating. Now, let's go deeper into why this matters. Authenticity is attractive because it signals strength. When someone doesn't need to perform, it tells the world, I'm enough as I am. That doesn't mean you're perfect. That doesn't mean you don't have flaws. It means you're not defined by them. You're not desperate to hide them. You're not living to impress. And that quiet strength is what makes people lean toward you. Because deep down, everyone wants to feel that way. Everyone wants to feel comfortable in their own skin. When they sense that in you, they crave it for themselves, and that craving shows up as attraction. Let's talk about presence for a moment. Presence is one of the sexiest qualities a man can have, and presence only happens when you're not in performance mode. Presence is when you're not thinking about how you look, how you sound, or what people think of you. Presence is when you're fully here, in this moment, with the person in front of you, and presence is rare. Most people are in the past or the future regretting what happened yesterday or worrying about what might happen tomorrow. But when you're just here, grounded, relaxed, alive in this moment, that's when people feel pulled to you. And guess what? That happens most naturally when you're not trying. And here's where so many men get it wrong. They think attraction is something you manufacture. They think it's about saying the right line, doing the right move, playing the right part. But every time you do that, you're stepping away from yourself. You're creating a layer between you and the other person. You're essentially saying, who I really am isn't enough, so let me give you this version instead. And even if the performance works in the short term, it can't hold weight in the long run. Because people don't fall in love with performances, they fall in love with people. There's another layer to this, too. Authenticity is attractive because it's unpredictable. When someone is performing, you can see through it. You know what's coming, you know the pattern, you know the script. But when someone is real, you don't know what to expect. You don't know how they'll respond because they're not calculating every move. That unpredictability creates curiosity. It makes people want to know more. It makes them lean in, and let me say this, authenticity doesn't mean you don't grow. It doesn't mean you don't work on yourself. It doesn't mean you don't aspire to be more. It simply means that as you grow, you're still rooted in who you truly are. You're not changing yourself to win approval. You're becoming more of who you've always been. That's the difference. Growth is attractive, but pretending is not. Now imagine how freeing this is. Imagine going on a date and not worrying about whether you're saying the right thing. Imagine walking into a room and not caring if you're the tallest guy or the richest guy or the funniest guy. Imagine being with friends or strangers or anyone at all and not carrying the heavy burden of needing to be liked. That's freedom, and when you live in that space, you radiate an ease that people can feel, and that ease makes them want to be around you because it makes them feel ease too. That's the thing. Attraction is contagious. When you're authentic, when you're not performing, you're relaxed. And that relaxation spreads. The people around you feel it, and they start to relax too. They don't feel judged, they don't feel pressured, they don't feel like they have to perform either. And what happens then? Real connection, real intimacy, real attraction that lasts. So here's the paradox. The more you try to be attractive, the less attractive you become. But the more you allow yourself to simply be, the more magnetic you are. And that's why so many men miss it. They're so busy trying to impress that they never realize they were impressive already. They're so busy trying to add layers that they never see the power of stripping them away. Think about the most unforgettable moments you've had with someone you were attracted to. Was it when they were perfectly polished, reciting rehearsed lines? Or was it when they laughed in a way that was completely unguarded? When they shared a story that was vulnerable? When they looked at you with complete presence, as if nothing else in the world mattered? Those moments stick because they were real. And real always wins. Here's the beauty of all this. You don't have to force authenticity. You don't have to manufacture it. It's already there. It's already you. The work isn't about creating it. It's about removing what blocks it. The fear, the comparison, the constant need for validation. When you let go of all that, what's left is your essence. And your essence is more attractive than any performance you could ever put on. That's why some of the most magnetic men are the ones who don't notice it. They're not checking themselves in every reflection. They're not rehearsing their every word. They're just living, and in that state of unawareness they shine, because they're not thinking about attraction. They're embodying it. And that's why people can't look away. And here's what it all comes down to. The signs that you're attractive aren't always in the mirror. They're in the way the world responds to you. It's in the stares that linger, the nervous laughter, the respect your words carry, the way people remember what you said, the way they adjust themselves in your presence. It's in the admiration you inspire, and yes, sometimes even the envy you provoke. But the most powerful sign of all is that you don't even have to try. Your authenticity, your calm, your presence, those things are already working for you. So stop waiting for permission to believe it. Stop thinking you need to add more, prove more, perform more. The truth is, you are already more magnetic than you realize. And the moment you embrace that, not only will the world notice you even more, but you'll finally start to notice it too.